Well, and thank you for your service as well. But a great idea on the air support, because in these big areas, whether it's unmanned or manned, this is can be super helpful tools, and we've got the technology to deploy in these large areas. We need to do it.
Thank you. And just to follow, if I could, on that, with these, we held some hearings on murdered and missing Indigenous peoples, and the challenge we have is after listening to all the testimony, we had the FBI come in and give us testimony from the agents and stuff. Some of the problems we found is that if you have a reservation the size of Connecticut and you got 2 officers on patrol, you get a domestic violence call. It's 2 hours later before you can get there. It's over. So we've got to do something about that, and that's what we're trying to address. But the biggest issue is jurisdictional issues between the state, the feds, the local law enforcement. Somehow we got to resolve. If you ever read a chapter on Indian rights and so forth, when you get to law enforcement, it is crazy, because it is different if you are an Indian on a reservation or if you're an Indian off a reservation, or if you are a non-tribal member that's an Indian on that reservation. And it becomes a joke trying to figure it out. Anyway, Ms. McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the discussion on our tribal sisters who have suffered. Secretary Burgum, I had a kick off the defense meeting, but I did read your testimony. It's good to see you as the being from family from Oaks, North Dakota, spending time in Williston and Sidney, Montana. I know where the trains run on time and where they change the time in Mandan. Through no fault of your own, we're working with a great disadvantage here because we're trying to discuss the budget without any details. You're still trying to put it together. We did get a skinny budget, and then it has a 30.5% cut to the Department of Interior, which, I think, speaking for myself, being a former chair with other former chairs sitting here, we think deserves a whole lot more money for the work and the job that we have to do. So to see a cut is really disappointing for us. We're trying to do things, many of the things that we talked about here, schools, law enforcement, clean water, having the personnel out there to work locally. So right now you're also finalizing plans to lay off thousands of employees through the department. We're still trying to figure out what DOJ did do, didn't do, can do, cannot do. So you've got a lot on your plate trying to figure out what we do to keep public employees where they need to be, providing the services that our constituents are demanding from us. Cutting park operations, you know well, you mentioned it, fewer park rangers to keep our visitors safe, to do the education that we need to do with the next generation about how important our natural resources are. And then there's just less maintenance of trails and national landmarks and that people go to visit the great state of North Dakota. I'll throw South Dakota in there just to keep everything good in the 5-state area, just to see what's happening. And it's those personal connections. One of the things that I found really alarming is the 39% cut to the U.S. Geological Survey. That's the scientific backbone of your department, the flow of water that sustains life, water that sustains our economy, whether it's crops. And then water, as we well know with what happened in Fargo, Moorhead, is still fresh in everybody's mind if you're around there, what happens when there's floods. So I hope, Mr. Chair, that as we have a little more money coming our way, that we don't forget the U.S. Geological Survey. Well, they propose, we dispose. And so this is perfect. Leads into what Chairman Cole was saying about making sure that there's money for historic preservation. So the cuts of $900 million from tribal nations, public safety, school infrastructure, you heard it. I just have to reiterate, we're very, very concerned about that. So as I said, we haven't seen much of your budget. So let me turn to something that isn't budgetary, which I normally don't do in this committee. I'm going to have my staff hand you a letter. This letter was sent on April 8th by me and other members of the Minnesota delegation. It is, and I can imagine how many letters you have, and maybe this one wasn't at the tip top of the first pile that was on your desk. The Mississippi National River Recreation Area was established by Congress in 1988 as a partnership park. MNRA, as it's called, and the Park Service, they work with 25 local governments, state and tribal nations, and other partner organizations to conserve, interpret, and manage 72-mile stretch of America's greatest river, the Mississippi River, also a working river. It incorporates local parks like the Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary, named after my friend and predecessor who sponsored the MNRA organization. Earlier this year, Elon Musk directed GSA to cancel the leases for the park's operational headquarters in its only visitor center, located in the lobby of the Science Museum of Minnesota. Roughly 230,000 visitors last year learned about the biology, the history, and the culture of the Mississippi River from park rangers through interactive exhibits, including, and I threw a couple of photos in there, like a flying eagle, and how to tie off a barge, something I didn't learn how to do growing up in South St. Paul on the Mississippi River, but I can tell you it's hard work from trying to do it at the Interpretive Center. MNRA is the only Park Service unit with the mission of interpreting the Mississippi River, our nation's river that everybody knows how to spell in this country, and people all around the world know how to spell it. The great river's ecological and economic importance to our nation. But here's the other thing. Not only do a lot of urban visitors visit that park, but people come from all over the 5-state area, as you know, to go to that history center. That's where park rangers are telling them about the grass lanes, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, what's going on in Michigan, in the Great Lakes area. So it is a huge bang for the National Park Service's buck to be in the Science Museum. So we understand that the MNRA leases are no longer on DOJ's list, but we haven't received any official response to my letter yet. So can we talk about this some more? Can we meet with other members on this before any further decisions are made about MNRA's future and losing that one interpretive center in the Twin Cities? In the, because it's the Dakotas, it's Iowa, it's our cousins from Canada who come down there, all in there being exposed to the Park Service. I love MNRA, but I love the Park Service even more. So can we work with your office on this?
Well, yes, we can. And your information matches mine, which is that these 2 leases that you're discussing in the letter are off the list. And so I'm anticipating that we'll have communication confirming that with you.
We've tried to also work both in the St. Croix Scenic River and on the Mississippi River to try to get not grandiose monuments to anybody, but to have more Park Service interpretation and that. And we also need to find a better lease space for MNRA and that's more on the river. The last thing I would add is when we were talking about law enforcement picking things up, I just, for the record, want to say how grateful I am to the St. Croix Sheriff's Department for the work that they do on the St. Croix River, because between us and Wisconsin, there's no other law enforcement first response out there for boaters on the scenic river. So we try to be a good partner. We look forward to being an even better partner with you in the future.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would say when our kids were younger, our favorite camping spot in Minnesota was the headwaters of the Mississippi up at Itasca, beautiful place. And when they were younger, they'd been to the Science Museum, so I've been there with them as well. And I've also boated in the recreation area. I've got a sister and a nephew that live in the Twin Cities. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. I think the larger principle for this committee, when we're saying we need more money for law enforcement, need more money for school construction, that one thing we maybe need less money for is federal office space. I mean, we have got so much office space in this country, and in some cases we need it. Some places it's a prime location, like in this case in the middle of the Science Museum. But we've got and particularly with the capability for people to effectively work remotely, or if we want to get more people out on the front lines, more people on a patrol boat, less people sitting in an office. We have to look at that balance, and I think that it's same for every state. I saw this in North Dakota. I mean, a little state like North Dakota, when I came there, I said, how much space do we have? Nobody knew. It wasn't on a balance sheet. Turns out we had 24 million square feet of space in little old North Dakota. And I'm like, do we need that much? No. Well, if you can get rid of, consolidate leases, renegotiate leases, do things like that. And in many cases, the federal government right now, with the collapse in demand for commercial space coming out of COVID, the fact that if things were on that list, it didn't mean that we were getting rid of it. It meant, is there an opportunity to renegotiate a list? When we do renegotiate a lease, when we do that, that frees up the dollars to spend on the stuff that all of us want to do. So it is smart for every department to be taking a look at their cost of space, because that's probably an area where we can save without affecting services to our citizens.
It's Minneapolis, St. Paul, but I'm from St. Paul, and we're here to help you
Okay.
find space.
Thank you.